Now in almost every Zelda game there's some great evil that wants to destroy the world and its people and blah blah blah. We hear about this time and time and time again. However, let's be real here. Nintendo over-exaggerates how bad things are most of the time. But out of all the terrible things seen in the Zelda games, which ones are the most shocking and terrible? Well, let's find out. Number 5. Battles on a great scale are new to the Legend of Zelda universe. We've heard about events like the Civil War, for example. However, there was one battle with a completely foreign kingdom that Hyrule ended up losing without even expecting it. This fight was a conflict between the Kingdom of Hyrule and the banished Twilight who lived in the Twilight Realm. There used to be peace between these nations, but at some point, certain events from the past made one person's blood boil. Zant. Using power from Ganondorf in his own 2 hands, he took down the royal family and became the new ruler, preparing his people for war. After this, he engulfed much of Hyrule, attacking village after village, city after city, taking out anyone who tried to resist. After a while, they reached Hyrule Castle, confronting the royal family of Hyrule directly, attacking all the guards there and beating them in seconds. After this, Zelda decided to surrender in order to save the rest of the citizens, because otherwise they would suffer even more. The whole event had a huge impact on the world, and for a time the Twilight ruled the world of light, instead of the Hylians and other races they're allies with. Now, Hyrule has lost to other armies before, but this was by far the worst and most devastating conflict they've ever experienced. The Twilight forces swept through the world with ruthless efficiency, kidnapping people, taking out guards, and even taking care of light spirits. They absolutely destroyed the lands and broke the spirits of the people found there by taking over and terrifying them. Thanks to their selfish and evil acts, they completely destroyed the world order since they wanted more and more, going way too far by using the excuse of feeling like an insect trapped in a cage so they can take over the entire known world, taking the lives of many, only to help a few. Number 4. As some of you might know, there are places in the world of Zelda that are considered holy or divine in some way. They were created by the gods as some sort of resting place for important artifacts, being a bit like heaven in a way. However, as you can imagine, evil has tried to infest these places many times, and sometimes they were successful in doing so. During the events of Ocarina of Time, the hero unintentionally allowed Ganondorf to enter the Sacred Realm and obtain the Triforce of Power, resulting in the realm's transformation into the Dark World as a reflection of the greed and evil in his heart. And later on, he even won and obtained the remaining Triforce pieces before being sealed by the 7 sages inside the corrupted Sacred Realm. Obviously, we're talking about the downfall timeline here. After these events, there was peace. But sometime before the events of A Link to the Past, it all went wrong. Because greedy people throughout the land who had heard of legends of the power of the Triforce sought out the former Golden Land and disappeared inside of it, transforming into monstrous representations of themselves, seemingly unaware that it was under the control of Ganondorf. In time, this went horribly wrong, as you can imagine, and so they decided to seal it so no one can go in or out. Now, thanks to these events, the world was out of balance, and the once beautiful Sacred Realm now reflected a monster. The people who entered never returned and were doomed. This was an awful act, and the only reason why Ganondorf even did this was to get more power. Clearly, a quite selfish act. As you can imagine, this was horrible, and in A Link to the Past, we see what happened to the people and beings found there, all being forsaken by the light and doomed to be monsters or hide in fear from them, clearly turning this beautiful place into literal hell. Number 3. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is probably the most important game in the Zelda universe. Well, when it comes to the story at least. However, while you're busy saving the world from the evil Ganondorf that tries to rule it with an iron fist, you will also fail. No matter what you do, the world will be doomed. And it's all thanks to one small mistake Link made when trying to get the stuff needed to beat the evil. Because after taking the Master Sword and opening the Sacred Realm to Ganondorf, it all went wrong. Because when Link returns 7 years later, after retrieving the Master Sword from its pedestal, he is shocked to find the town completely in ruins as a result of Ganondorf's invasion. The whole place turned into a hellhole, looking completely different from 7 years ago, when there was still peace. Most of its citizens managed to escape the Kakariko village, leaving the town to be invaded by hordes of Redeads. Even outside of the town, the drawbridge had been destroyed by Ganondorf, leaving it wide open for anyone. As you can imagine, this is a horrible event and certainly the most evil act of Ganondorf seen in this game. And it all hits you especially hard when you go back in time to see how it used to be before the King of Evil used his dark powers. We don't even know how many people ended up being left behind and swarmed by Redeads, meeting their end and joining their ranks. Within 7 short years, this amazing town center and beautiful castle turned into the lowest layer of hell. Number 2. In the Legend of Zelda games, you will always win and save the world from the evil that is threatening the world itself. Well, almost always. Sure, they might do some horrible things or ruin tons of lives, but in the end, Link is able to save the day and fix everything. However, there's one game where we actually get to see what would have happened if we failed. And what ends up happening is way worse than anything we have covered by far. Because after Ocarina of Time, Link has to save the world of Termina from the evil majora's mask, which became cursed thanks to being used in dark rituals. And after Skull Kid got his hands on it, the evil artifact slowly started to possess him, and his jokes became worse and worse, ending in one of the most evil plans ever seen in The Legend of Zelda. Pure destruction on a gigantic scale. And the crazy thing about it is that it's not even useful to the villain in any way, shape or form. He took the moon and set it on a collision course with Clock Town, and within 3 days the moon would crash, destroying the entire planet basically. Now it's up to Link to save the planet from this evil, and to do this he has to free the 4 giants in every region so they can stop the moon itself. However, in the game itself, you can actually see what happens when you mess up since there's a time limit. Every day, the moon gets closer and closer. When the evening of the 3rd day finally rolls around and you wait long enough, time will run out, and you can actually see the moon crash into the world. It will destroy the town, and by the looks of it, the entire planet will be gone in an instant, with a huge fire shockwave going across the land, killing anyone or thing in the way. There is no mercy here. While Zen just took over and ended the lives of some, Majora's Mask went for total destruction. No one would be spared, making this one of the most evil deeds ever seen in the Zelda series. Number 1. Hey, little side note, in the upper right corner there are way more videos and even entire playlists. Be sure to have a look when you're done with this video. Now we get to the most evil thing a villain has ever done in the series, and this one is really bad. Changing the world for good. And funny enough, all of this happened a mere 2 years ago when we first saw what the Calamity Ganon did to Hyrule. Because 100 years prior to the game, a prophecy warned of the damage this awful evil could do. So they prepared themselves. However, it managed to corrupt the entire Guardian and Divine Beast army with its malice, and turned them against Hyrule. With their strongest weapons turned against them, Hyrule was laid to ruin, and Link was mortally wounded, requiring him to sleep in the Shrine of Resurrection for 100 years in order to ever return. And then Princess Zelda went on to confront the Calamity Ganon on her own, and managed to seal it once more, although this required her to also become its prisoner to maintain the seal. And in the game we see the effects of all of this as soon as it starts. The whole world is completely destroyed, and actually quite depressing. You will come across ruins of older settlements, however everything is in pieces, and all the people who used to live there are no more. People even mention how the world had changed, what they lost thanks to all the events that happened, and way more. Calamity Ganon destroyed everyone's hopes and dreams in no time, and we even get to see this in a cutscene. For example, when the former king, who also lost his life, explains to Link what happened, we see Hyrule Castle being turned into ash within mere seconds. This event affected every single town, city, and race seen in the entire world, with even other kingdoms like the Zoras and Gorons suffering. Even the aftermath of it all left a permanent dent in the world, with every race having an evil divine beast close to them that could attack at any moment. So out of all the terrible events we have ever seen in the games, most other evil deeds can be stopped or fixed in some way. But here the damage has been done, and the effects it had on the world are there to stay for good, leaving it in complete ruins. But if you want to cheer up a bit, be sure to check the videos and the playlists in the upper right corner. They're tons of fun, and there are so many videos there like, oh my lord. However, when it comes to this video, we have reached the end. While Calamity Ganon was certainly the most effective evil seen in the world, he is not there to stay. We already see people rebuild the world in Breath of the Wild, and one day, it will be like the good old days. We might even see that in the Breath of the Wild sequel. Who knows?